All right, back in the shop. It's a few days later from when I started this video series, or this section. It's a long video series, so I'm back in the shop. Got one of the ailerons mocked up. One of my concerns were where this angle here on one skin meets the angle on the other skin, and so I cut them short. But then after mocking everything up and looking down here, they don't come anywhere near each other, right? That slant doesn't come anywhere near. What's actually holding it off is, if you look in there, you'll see that the clecos are actually what's holding it off. But so that concern is not an issue, and everything. So actually it's the cleco that is holding it off. So that is good news. So I'm going to continue to mock these up, and then go ahead and just line them up, do a sanity check, make sure everything is the way it is. I got the right side and the left side. Now, one of the things is, if you look at the plans, they will show, and this is what you have to do, is if you look at the plans here, this is facing this outward, or what they call the inboard rib. So just make sure that you do that, your alignment, because if you don't, if you get it backwards, then your stiffeners will be off. So just make sure that you get that alignment correct. Trust the plans. Don't deviate from them. Now, this is for the left side. The right side will be exactly the opposite. The stiffeners will be actually facing the other direction. So that's how you know the left from the right aileron. All right, YouTube. So we got both of the trailing edge of the ailerons mocked up. And the only thing I can tell you here is make sure that you have the position. There's a long slant that goes towards the trailing edge, and then there's a short slant in the thing. And so if you look here, when I say long slant, I mean this long slant goes towards the trailing edge, and then the short slant. So, and the reason why I like to mock these up is for this specific reason, is I had them backwards on this one. So that's why I mock them up, because it wasn't quite fitting. It fit, but it just didn't feel right. So we mocked them up. I actually had it backwards on one side, I should say. You will know how the skin orientation goes, because if you look here, there's a cutout for this bracket here, right? And so if it's long, and it's for both, so that way you know, well, for the top. I want to say bottom. This is the bottom. So that's how you kind of know. Top is a little bit different. I did put the wedge in there and when I say the wedge, there's a wedge that goes between the skins that's at an angle. So I went ahead and put that in there, marked them, and I'll get those cut and everything. But yeah, so I got everything mocked up and ready to go. Now what I will do is, obviously I've got to dimple. So I got to pull all the pieces off, and then we got to dimple, and then we got to prime and all that. So tomorrow we'll probably spend getting these pieces dimpled, and then there's some countersinking exercises and different things of that nature. We have to countersink this side. One thing I'm looking at here, and this is kind of, I don't want to say kind of bizarre, but it almost looks like there's a nut plate that goes here, but I'm looking at the plans, and nowhere in the plans does it show an actual nut plate in there. See, so it shows it here, but I don't actually see anywhere there is a nut plate. Maybe that's a tooling, that possibly could be a tooling hole for the tooling, but there is no, as I review these, there is no nut plate called out. But that looks just like a nut plate, something that you would put a nut plate into. It's right here as well. That you would show a nut plate to. So it's kind of bizarre. I don't know. How bizarre. How bizarre. So yeah, so that is what we're going to do tomorrow. We'll get in here, we'll get everything, take it apart, get it. Now I'm going to clean off a bench. I'm going to have a right and a left side so I don't run into the same mistake that I ran into with these guys where I got everything mocked up correctly and everything was perfect. And then in the part of painting and sub-assembly, disassembly, I got parts mixed up. So I'm going to clean off a bench and I'll have a right side and a left side and everything. So that way I know that they're right. So how do I know they're correct though? Because they're exact mirror of each other, right? I mean, if I lay them down, they mirror each other, so I know that the sub-assembly is correct, plus I double-checked with the thing. When I say mirror, they mirror each other, right? It's like looking in a mirror. So, yep, so we have that. But like I said, I will come in here. We have to do a lot of dimpling, some countersinking, things of that nature, but I'm going to get a bench, and especially when you're doing 2 at a time, or when you mocked up 2 at a time. I've got the leading edge there. So when I got 2 of them at a time, there's a possibility the parts getting mixed up. So I'm going to separate, clean off another bench, put those parts back into the part bay, get that back up into the thing, and then I'll keep one side on one and one on the other. So, all right, enough said. I want to say thanks, and I fill you guys in. I was just informed we actually had an airplane with an emergency landing here at the airport. I'm gonna go. I don't want to gawk, but I'm gonna go look. I guess that's gawking, and maybe, I don't know. They said the pilot is over here and she's talking to people, and yeah, she ran it off the end of the runway. Actually had to land with a pretty significant. We got about 15-mile-an-hour tailwind. She had no choice. She lost an engine and brought her down safely. Everything's ran off the end of the runway and stuff. But I wanted to talk to her if she's willing to talk, to try to, learn from her. I don't want to say mistake or anything, but learn from her experience and everything. So I'm going to head out of here, call it a day. But like always, God bless. Take care of yourself. And if you have any questions, concerns, or anything, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. To YouTube. All right, so I got my parts dimpled. I still got to do some countersinking. I've got to cut my trailing edge wedge. I got a bunch of countersinking on the spar. I do want to show you. So before I took the pieces off, and let me show you what I typically do. I didn't do it on the fuel tanks, which that's a different story. So I left this set mocked up. So this kind of gives me reference parts and stuff, references. So what I did is, while it was on, I'll show you here. I know that these have to get countersunk, right? So these get countersunk. So I put CS, right, while it's on the part. So that way I know, if you look, I didn't do CS here. I got to do that. But that's what I did there. Now, here, these get dimpled. And because these are going to get riveted, but they're going to be CSs. They're going to be LP4 CS, though. They're countersunk. So I know that. So what I do is I laid the parts out on the table, and I marked, like, all these parts get CS. This does not get CS'd, countersunk. These all get countersunk, except for these guys here. I believe there's one. This one does get countersunk. This one does. So that's why that's there. I'm going to review these again, because you always got to, oh my gosh, always got to make sure. But so I'll review them, but I mark them, and then the ones I know that don't get countersunk, I mark those off. And then these get countersunk. the way that they tell you is they say 120 dimple flush other side 6 places. So these are flush because these brackets get mounted and they're countersunk. So these get done, but these here get countersunk. Excuse me. So that's it. But what I do is, like I said, is I put the part out. It tells you manufactured head on this side. So it's telling you where the head is, you know, where they want the head going through. So that's really nice and everything. So yeah, so I did that. See here, it says leave open. So I have to take these two here. So what I'll do is I'll mark this so when I get there, as I'm doing each part, because what I'll do is I'll pull the part, I'll look at the plan specifically, and then I'll do it. But I put myself a little mark right here, leave open, so I'm aware that I need to, on these, which is this guy right here, right? These two are left open. So doesn't mean they're countersunk, or not countersunk, they're just leave open, they're not riveted. So yeah, so that's basically where, and you know what, I know why those are left open, because that piece goes through here, and attaches, so you don't want to rivet these, because there's rivets that go through here, through these two pieces, and connect to one of these pieces down here. And so it ties it all together. Of course, I had to grab the other one, but it basically goes like this when you're ready to sync it all up. It's the other side, but that's why that you leave those open, because you will blind rivet those using some CS countersink 4-3s or and everything. So yep, so I laid out my parts, and before I actually start cutting on these or countersinking, I will grab the part, and then I will reference it to the drawing, and then make sure that I do what it tells it to do. Now I know these get countersunk because they're riveted with 426s, which are countersunk rivets. So that's the other way too. Sometimes vans will tell you what the countersink, but when in doubt, just go look at the rivet call out. If it's a 426, you know it's countersunk. It's a 470, it's not. And that's another way. So, all right, I am gonna wrap it up a day. Yeah, I decided, I know I told you guys I was leaving, but I decided to stay and get some more work done and everything. So I got everything dimpled. My skins are ready to go. So the order of operation is, after I get the countersinking done, and I've got a special tool to countersink these 45s, and I'll show you that tomorrow when I come in. But after all the countersinking is done and stuff, I am going to get these parts ready to go into paint, and then we'll get them painted or primed, and then while they are drying and prime and everything, we will then start to tear these down as well and stuff. So yeah, that's just kind of the process I've adopted. It works well for me, keeps me out of trouble. I didn't do that for the tanks, and guess what? I got in trouble. So we learn from our mistakes. Not really. I'm sure I'll make a lot more. So with that, I just want to say good evening. I am out of here, and we'll be back in the shop, God willing, tomorrow.